Hey everybody, I am here inside the lobby of the Push Comedy Theater. You may actually be able to hear the traffic going by on Granby Street out there. I am super pumped about today's episode because I am making Millennials watch one of my comedy inspirations. We're talking about the Monkees. Yes, believe it or not, I am a huge fan of the Monkees, and it really kind of changed the way I looked at comedy when I first saw it as a kid. But will the Millennials think so? We're going to find out. Anyway, this was supposed to be a reaction video, which we'd never done before here on the Nerds of Comedy, and it didn't work. We started the episode, and we just actually really got into watching it. So it's going to be your typical Nerds of Comedy review episode instead. What can you do? Anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and check out the Nerds of Comedy making Millennials watch the Monkees. Welcome to the Nerds of Comedy. We are trying something new today. I'm jumping on the bandwagon that all the cool kids are doing with reaction videos. I know, Barrett, I think we talked about this once. You hate reaction videos.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it's great.
This is what this is? Oh,
yeah.
You tricked me.
I did. We'll see. It might be reaction. We're going to see what happens as we go along. I might cut it up. Who knows? So I am here with Barrett Sigmund and Laura Pohl. Barrett, you are I would say, if I had to classify, you are more of a sketch comedian / writer.
Yes.
An improviser.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. I'm retired from improv.
Yeah. And I think the world is a better place.
I agree. I agree.
Barrett, you were in the group, the Prima Donnas. You also do stuff with a group of the theater called Third Wheel with friend of the Nerds of Comedy, Molly Graham, your soon-to-be wife.
I was about to say, my fiance, actually.
Yeah. And then your third wheel, Jeff Ballou, who has not been on the Nerds of Comedy, but maybe one day he will. Who knows?
Yeah.
And we're also joined by Laura. Laura, you are on the house teams at the Push Comedy Theater, the short form teams. You are on which team?
We are called the Crying Turtles, aka the Green Team.
Okay, the Green Team. Yes. See,
Yeah.
I know you guys as the Green Team, but so you actually have a name, the Crying Turtles. And then what was the team you were on before that?
I used to be on the team called Baloney on the Windshield.
See, yeah, and I had made this joke earlier, but it is your stereotypical improv team names. So ridiculous. I'm starting a new series where we are examining the comedic influences of various members of the Push Comedy Theater. And since I'm the owner of the Push Comedy Theater and this is my channel, I decided I was going to go first with my influences. So we are going to talk about one of my all-time influences in comedy, and people give me a weird look whenever I say it, and that is the Monkees, the 1960s TV show, The Monkees.
Hey, hey, we're the Monkees, and people say we monkey around.
So I'm bringing you guys on. Do you guys know who the Monkees are? Or what do you know about the Monkees?
I'm familiar with like the Smash Mouth like song that they covered. Oh, wait, no Smash Mouth covered. So familiar with that part of the Monkees, but not too much.
And what about you, Barrett?
Like we talked about when we did my podcast, yeah, like her, it's Smash Mouth. Our generation knows the Monkees through the Smash Mouth cover, which was on the Shrek soundtrack. So that's about all I know, really. I know Davy Jones. I've heard that name, but that's about it.
So I'm going to give you guys just a really quick kind of brief history. It was a TV show in the 1960s. It came out in 1966 about 4 guys trying to make it as a rock and roll band. The producers got 2 actors and then 2 musicians and put them together. So it's probably one of the very first ever like boy bands. If you think of like New Kids on the Block or NSYNC, they were put together by producers as opposed to a band that got together on their own. The TV series ran for 2 seasons, and during that time, they released a bunch of albums and they became huge. During 1967, they sold more records than the Beatles and the Rolling Stones combined.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Oh wow. That's crazy.
The big kind of knock on the Monkees during the day was they didn't play their own instruments.
If you really found out that none of us could play a note and couldn't carry a tune in the bucket, would you hate us?
No.
No? Why is that?
Well, because you're putting people on pretty good if you don't.
Which was kind of true, kind of not true. They got a bunch of really good songwriters who wrote majority of their songs for the first two albums. And because they were producing a TV show at the time, they would, on their off times, they would just drag them into the studio and have them sing the vocals and then throw them back on the set to record their episodes. So they weren't allowed to perform on their first two albums, even though they could all play. Then after that, they were able to get control of their music. And from then on, all the other albums they performed on, wrote a lot of the songs, or, were in charge of hiring the songwriters and any sessions musicians that they needed. Jimi Hendrix's first tour was opening for the Monkees.
Whoa.
Which went over really bad. If you think about it, yeah, if Jimi Hendrix opened for New Kids on the Block or something like that, it's just a complete and utter clash of audiences. So
Yeah.
So it didn't go over very well, but people nowadays know them because of their music. They don't know them because of their TV show, which at the time was really kind of groundbreaking. If you think about other TV shows at the time in the 1960s, in 66, you had like the Beverly Hillbillies, you had the Andy Griffith Show.
Brady Bunch, was that one around that time?
Brady Bunch came out a little bit after the Monkees. I think it was like 69 or 70, but Davy Jones actually starred on a very famous episode of the Brady Bunch. But back then, any TV show, if you had kids on it, there was always some sort of adult figure, which the Monkees did not have. You had like four guys in their late teens, early 20s living together in a house on the beach in Malibu. It was one of the first shows that had a female writer. There were other female writers at the time, but they were always paired off with a partner. Like there's a very famous woman who wrote for I Love Lucy, but she was always paired off with a male writing partner. This was the first time you had a female writer who was able to just go off and write on her own. And get credit for that. So we are going to watch 2 episodes of the Monkees. And are you guys familiar with like any TV shows from like the 60s? You said Brady Bunch. I brought up like Andy Griffith Show.
Partridge Family. I feel like this kind of had a Monkees vibe, right?
Yeah, Partridge Family did have a Monkees vibe, and you'll definitely see it more when we start watching, as far as like narrative and as far as telling the stories, a lot of different things, tricks that you would see later on in TV shows, but you didn't see a lot at the time. All right, so this is called The Monkees in a Ghost Town. It is from first season, 1966. Something else that was different is I believe they did 53 episodes in 2 seasons.
Damn.
Nowadays, nowadays, you get 10 to 13 episodes in a season. So they were really kind of cranking them out. It stars, the guest stars are Lon Chaney Jr., who plays a kind of a gangster who was the Universal, the Wolfman from the Universal, and Rose Marie, who I don't know if you're familiar with the Dick Van Dyke Show. She was a cast member on the Dick Van Dyke Show. So from 1966, the first season of the Monkees, this is The Monkees in a Ghost Town.
$500, huh? Well, I've only got 3 words for you, Black Bart.
Yeah, what are they?
$600.
Kincaid? You're a yellow-livered coward.
Did he just get murdered?
So I'm gonna pause it. Yeah, I'm gonna pause it real fast. So right there at the beginning, you see one thing that you'll find a lot in the Monkees is where they just go into like these little fantasy sequences, or almost like little cut-tos that you see like a lot in Family Guy.
Oh, so okay.
Now, granted,
Those cowboys like were not real.
No,
like,
yeah, they
the cowboys.
No, that was not real. So yeah, they'll just go into these little like fantasy sequences for no reason whatsoever, and then just pop back into reality.
Okay, so that go and stop sign, that was not real.
That may have been real.
Okay.
But and then something else, that the car that they're driving is designed by the same guy that designed the Adam West Batmobile.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
And then something else you'll see in the credits is that they're playing themselves. So they hired 2 actors and 2 musicians, but instead of giving them character names, they just told them to play stylized versions of themselves. With the exception of the blonde-haired one, Peter, they wrote him to be really dumb. He got kind of the thankless job of being the dumb one on the show, which he wasn't in real life. He was kind of a hippie, but he definitely is not as dumb as they make him out in the TV show.
All right.
So I'm gonna keep on going. So that was the Monkees, or Monkeys in a Ghost Town.
Now, why did you choose this episode, Sean?
I choose this one because it had a lot of the elements that you'll find in the series. You had them breaking the fourth wall. You had them doing like the weird kind of absurd things when they're in the jail cell and suddenly they have real baseball bat and glove and mitts. You even have Lenny in a umpire's uniform. You have them, obviously you have the musical interludes, which those were in all the episodes.
So take my hand, I'll start my journey, free from all the helpless worry that besets a man.
This one also had the kind of tag at the end where you just kind of see them hanging out backstage.
Hey, Mike, show's over. What are you doing, babe?
Putting a name there on the back of the chair.
What is it?
Lawrence St. David is the name.
Why? Well, I mean, why you put the name of the
Lawrence St. David?
Yeah.
I don't want anybody to recognize me.
That's something that they would do a lot, where you just kind of see them being themselves. Sometimes they would talk about what was going on around the country with kind of like the youth movement or the hippie movement. I think at the times there were a bunch of like youth riots in LA, so they would talk about that.
There's been a lot of talk about the riots that have been going on Sunset Strip.
There was a riot. You know, there was a lot of vandalism.
There haven't really been riots. They've been, in actuality, since I was there, they've been demonstrations.
Which is something you would never see on a sitcom at the time. So this episode had all of those kind of thrown into one.
I enjoyed it. Was it a laugh a minute riot? No, but no, I kind of like the surrealism of it.
And I think that's, for me, this is why I think it's very influential to like me and my comedy. So obviously this came out in the 60s and nothing like this was kind of seen on television. If you look at most sitcoms of the day, they were very family oriented, none of this surreal stuff. And then in the 80s, when I was a kid, is when the Monkees had a resurgence and MTV started playing the Monkees. And that's when I kind of saw them for the first time. And if you think of the sitcoms that I was watching at the time then, you know, like Cheers, The Jeffersons, Different Strokes, The Facts of Life. Again, this was completely different than any of those typical sitcoms. And for some reason, it just really struck a chord with me.
First we get lost and run out of gas, and then Mike and Davey disappear, and then somebody starts shooting off a machine gun, and now this guy is searching the town.
That's for the benefit of any of you who've tuned in late. Now, back to our story.
Yeah, I like that stuff.
Yeah.
Now, what year did this air?
1966.
So, okay, A Hard Day's Night. Have you seen that movie?
Yes. So this was a direct kind of answer to A Hard Day's Night. The producers wanted to create an American version of A Hard Day's Night. So that was what their intention was going in.
Okay, yeah, because I could definitely see that. Yeah, because that movie is like a fictionalized version of the Beatles, like just going on crazy hijinks. I think they did another one. Help is another one.
Yeah, they did Help. Yeah, I haven't seen Help either, but yeah, this is very much A Hard Day's Night. It just came out, I think, like in what, 64, 65? Yeah.
This definitely reminded me a lot of like the Beatles like cartoon that was like out. Like, gave me like this sort of like a feeling of like what those sort of cartoons be like, and like instead shot in live action. I'm like, okay, this definitely was a lot of fun.
I would say that's actually pretty a good kind of like observation. For me, it definitely feels like a live action cartoon.
Yes.
In the sense that they can just essentially do anything, you know, like they never explain how Mickey and Peter suddenly have gangster suits out in the middle of the desert, and then how they
I didn't even think of that.
Or even, I think, right at the beginning where they say, Lenny put him on ice and Davey suddenly has like a big block of ice.
Where am I going to get ice on the desert?
It definitely has like this weird kind of Looney Tunes type vibe. Once they got the four guys, they spent 6 weeks of intensive improv training, and they encouraged a lot of improv on the set.
Okay. Now there's a line in this I really loved. It's when they're singing with, is her name Betsy? Was that the lady's name?
Yeah.
Bessie, yes.
Do you know you're gonna get the chair for that? And she's like, oh, I don't know that one.
Okay, Lenny, now let's rub them out.
Wait a minute, Bessie. Do you know you can get the chair for this?
No, I don't think I remember that one. But let's do Everybody Loves My Baby again. That's a good one. Come on.
If you think it's just stupid.
That was great. I really like that. So there's some good writing that kind of makes you like think like, oh wait, kind of a delayed response. But when you think about it, it's like, oh, that's really clever.
And then George and Lenny, the two gangsters, are a takeoff of George and Lenny of Mice and Men.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because I didn't catch on that his name was George. And then when he pulled the mouse out, I was like, what? But I got it.
Yeah.
Again, good writing kind of makes you like, when you think about it, like, oh, okay, that's what that was.
Mm-hmm. For me, like the weird stuff of where they acknowledge the camera. I don't think I'd ever seen that I was probably 10 or 11 when I saw this for the first time. And I'd never seen like breaking of the fourth wall.
Now, this is the moment when the cavalry usually rides up. Don't trust the cavalry.
Yeah, what other shows have done it? I'm trying to think. I mean, I'm sure there's tons of them.
Like in the 60s, but like I've seen like a lot of like more like modern sort of like shows do this. Like definitely I think of like iCarly, which is like in like a kids like TV show about it's sort of like I'm like, okay, I think I can see where a lot of like these kid shows that I was watching as like a teen and around the age probably got their influence and stuff.
Right.
I will say I did like the musical little like interludes. Yeah, I kind of want to listen to a Monkees album now. Like those some good songs.
They had some really good songs. So they had great songwriters. Neil Diamond wrote a bunch of stuff.
Really?
For them. Yes. They had really good session musicians come in at the time as well. Like Neil Young played on a lot of their albums. Glenn Campbell played on a lot of their albums.
Wow.
Their session musicians were really good at the time. And like I said, I mean, their first 3 albums all went to #1.
Okay. So wow, they really outsold the Beatles and the Rolling Stones combined.
Yes.
66 or whatever.
Yes.
That is insane to me.
That is just crazy.
There's another show that's more recent, but Flight of the Conchords. This I feel like this is directly influenced, or you know what I mean. That this influenced Flight of the Conchords a lot.
Yeah, I think so too. All right, that's actually going to be part 1 of Making Millennials Watch the Monkees. It turns out we actually watched 2 episodes, and you'll see their reaction. Or I guess it's not a reaction because we messed that part up. Their review or what they thought about the 2nd episode next week. So if you like this episode, you're going to love next week's episode. Come back to the Nerds of Comedy next week, or actually whenever. You can just, watch as many videos as you want. I would prefer that, actually. But anyway, next week is going to be part 2 of Making Millennials Watch the Monkees. We'll see you then.